Today I'm gonna play chess against an Indonesian. He's playing white and I'm playing black. Um, his name is Utap.
Oh my god!
So Utam's first move is moving his king's pawn to e4. My response to that is moving my queen's bishop pawn to c5. He responded moving his knight to f3, and my response is moving my queen's pawn to d6. Now he moved his rook on the right side. I responded moving my knight on the right side. Again, he moved his rook's pawn to on the left side to h3, and my response is moving my knight to f6. Now again, he moved his knight to c3, and I responded moving my king's pawn on e5. So now he moved his bishop. I moved my bishop. Queen's pawn to d3, and I responded moving my pawn. My rook's pawn to a6. Now, bishop retreated. I castled. And then, my opponent moved his bishop to e3, and I moved my knight to d4. Now, my opponent castled. I moved my queen. Bishop takes knight. Pawn takes bishop. Knight retreats. I moved my bishop to e6. My opponent moved his knight to g3, and I moved my rook to c8. Now, his pawn is taking a move. Okay, now my turn. I also moved my pawn, offering an exchange. Pawn takes pawn, and I took the pawn with the knight. Next move, bishop retreats, threatening my knight. I moved my knight to c3, and my opponent responded using his queen to moving it to d2. I took the bishop, pawn took the bishop. I moved my pawn to f6. My opponent responded using his rook to c1. I moved my pawn, offering a pawn to pawn exchange. My opponent did not accept the pawn to pawn exchange. I took the pawn using my bishop. Now, rook threatens the bishop. I retreated my bishop. Knight moves to f5. Then, as a response, I took the pawn, and also threatening the queen. Now, queen moved to e2, and then I threatened the queen using my knight, moving it to c3. Next, queen moved to b2. I responded moving my queen to d7. Knight retreats. I moved my queen to b5. Knight retreats again to protect the pawn. Now, I started moving my pawn on f5. King moved his my opponent's king moved his pawn to h2. I moved my bishop to d6, and of course, because king might be threatened for an open check for the knight, so king retreats. Now, next move, I moved my pawn. Queen moved to d2. I took the pawn. Now, queen moved to g5. Again, I moved the pawn, threatening the rook. Knight moved to h5. I responded moving my rook to c7 to protect a potential checkmate. Now, knight moved to f3. I took the rook using my queen. Now, next move, actually the pawn was promoted to become a queen. Now, rook, of course, took the took the queen, and I took the pawn on d4. I mean d3. Next, rook goes down, goes to a6, but that is a wrong move.
Another one.
Okay. Queen gives a check. Knight covers the queen. I move my knight to e2, offering a knight to 9 exchange, but he cannot accept it. King moved to h2.
何お前はもう死んでいる。
And that is a checkmate. Checkmate. That's all. See you next time.